How's it going, guys? Cody, guys, back again, dropping yet another video. Right, guys, this time it's in my local paper, the Manchester Evening News. I'm shocked at this, guys, to be honest with you. Hit and run driver weeps in court as she is spared jail after killing a 77-year-old man whilst on the phone to her boyfriend. Now, I need to make a disclaimer. Apparently, she had a hands-free kit on. But the fact is, if she wasn't on the phone, I don't think she would have hit him. But apparently he fell into the road and she didn't see him. But if she wasn't on the phone to her boyfriend, right, then she would have been paying attention to the road. And I'm sorry, but even being on the phone, right, you might be driving, but at the end of the day, it's taking your concentration off the road, right? And she wasn't jailed, guys. She was fined £500 for failing to stop. Oh, that's another thing as well. She failed to stop as well. She left the scene of the accident. Right, and she didn't go to prison. And I'm sorry, guys, right, like I say, I stick up for prisoners and stuff like that. I personally believe she should have gone to prison. Listen to the story, guys, and see if you agree with me or disagree with me. Link in the description, like I always do. As Anne Edwards was fined £500 for failing to stop, she mouthed sorry to her victim's family in the public gallery. They ignored her. I would as well. A hit-and-run driver who killed a 77-year-old man while she was having a hands-free phone conversation with her boyfriend at the wheel of her car wept as she was fined just £500. Anne Edwards, 25, was speaking legally through her car headset to her partner, but she failed to spot Brian Croxon, who had slipped on the cobbles and fallen into the road ahead of her on Sandy Lane in Oldham. Despite another car in front of her taking evasive action, Edwards, an administrative assistant for healthcare provider Bupa. How ironic, guys. She works for Bupa up at Salford Quays, right? But she ended up hitting this guy. She hit him. She must have been distracted, guys, so much so that she hit a man that had fallen into the road, and then she made off from the scene. I'm sorry, if you hit someone and you drive over somebody, you're telling me that your car's just going to continue on the same course. It's going to, like, there's going to be like a lump, do you know what I mean? She drove away from the scene. She might have even been in the influence of alcohol, but I can't be wrong to surmise that, do you know what I mean? But the fact is, she was on the phone to her boyfriend, on a hands-free kit, so she was doing it within the confines of the law, but it's taken her attention off the road to first hit a man that had fallen into the road, then drive over him, and then make off from the scene. And she got £500, right, fine. And can I just clarify, that money doesn't go to the victim's family, right? No. That goes to the courts. There wasn't a victim surcharge on this, right? And like I say, Mr. Croxon paid with his life. He was 77. He obviously had a loving family. And the fact that she tried to mouth sorry from the dock, right? Then she walked out of the dock and went home. It's disgusting, guys. Really disgusting case, guys. Really angers me this. She should have been in prison, man. Like I say, I don't know. Like, hit and run. I mean, she's hit someone and then she's drove off. Everyone else managed to drive it and make evasive action. Not her. She could have been on the influence of alcohol. She left the scene of the incident. She was on the phone to her boyfriend, and then she hits him, and then carried on talking to her boyfriend on the phone. Shh, you're having a fucking laugh. So she drove over Mr. Croxon as he lay in the road, then carried on driving. As other motorists stopped to attend to the dying man, Edwards briefly returned to the scene, then drove past slowly before slinking away. So, no, do you know what, guys, right? I don't read the story before I do these vlogs, right? So she actually knew that she'd hit him, carried on the phone conversation to her boyfriend, turned around, drove past slowly, and then fucked off. £500 fine, guys, right? If she would have hit him and she would have, like I said, sorry, and she would have stayed with him and stuff like that, rang an ambulance and things like that, that would have been, do you know what I mean, fair enough. But the fact is, she made off from the scene, guys. She drove back, she doubled back on herself, and before slinking away. Mr. Croxon, a former president of the Royton Brass Band Club in Oldham for 20 years, suffered fatal injuries in the impact outside the club's premises. He died shortly afterwards. Edwards was arrested but claimed she thought she had hit a pile of rubbish she left dumped in the road. It emerged one of the headlights on her Ford Fiesta was not working properly. So you've got a defective headlight. She was on the phone to her boyfriend, albeit legally, but that takes her attention off the road. She then hits an old man who'd fallen into the road. God bless Mr. Croxon, may rest in peace. Then she knew that she'd hit something, turned around, came back past him, seen people tending to him in the road, and then drove off. £500 fine, guys. And I've been in prison with people for not paying parking fines or non-payment of council tax. as well as murder and other offences. But the fact is, she's hit him and she's killed him. If she didn't hit him, he would still be alive. Do you know what I mean? She thought she'd hit a pile of rubbish. Fuck off. And she had a defective headlight. At Minchell Street, Crown Court, Manchester, Open University business management student Edwards stood on trial accused of causing death by careless driving, with prosecutors accusing her of being distracted by the phone call. Well, I agree. But she was cleared of the charge, having earlier admitted failing to stop or report an accident. Her licence was endorsed with 8 penalty points, but she was spared a driving ban. So she got a £500 fine, guys, and 8 penalty points. And they call it justice, guys. I mean, I don't like people being sent to prison, but the fact is this cow should have been in prison. Disgusting. Motorists are banned from using handheld phones at the wheel, but can legally use hand-free kits to field calls. Road safety groups believe mobile phones should be completely switched off while driving to avoid any distraction. I'd actually be inclined to believe that, to agree with that, sorry. The tragedy occurred at 11 p.m. on December the 8th last year, whilst Edwards in the middle of a 4-minute, 20-second phone call with her boyfriend. She had earlier begun arguing with. So here you go, here we go, here we go. So she's on to her boyfriend, they're arguing on the phone, probably ranting at him on the phone, on the hands-free and stuff. Old man's falling in the road, everyone takes evasive action. She hits him, she's got defective headlight. She tried to blag it, saying she thought she'd hit a pile of rubbish. Drove round, turned round, came back past the scene, seen people to attending to him, and drove off. One of her dipped headlight was not working on the day of the incident, and there's evidence to suggest it had not been working for about 3 weeks, said Kevin Donnelly, prosecuting. Then there's a picture of Brian Croxon, God bless him, may rest in peace, looked like a lovely gentleman. At the time of the collision, she was in a conversation with somebody, although she was using a car headset, which is not unlawful. Mr. Croxon, who visited the Brass Blank Club 6 nights a week, had arrived at about 9:10 p.m. and left just under 2 hours later. Outside the club at 11 p.m, he was seen to stumble on cobbles at a road junction before falling into the path of a Citroen Picasso driven by Kelly Winstanley. Mr. Donnelly added Mr. Croxon had 3 single whiskies and lemonades, but did not seem to be drunk, according to a member of staff. Miss Winstanley describes him as standing on cobbled surface of a road as she approached. Something caused him to stumble into the road directly in front of her. Miss Winstanley's instant reaction was to swerve to the right to avoid hitting him, then swerved back into her own lane, and she looked into a mirror and saw him motionless. The defendant was also driving in the same direction as Miss Winstanley, but she drove over Mr. Croxon as he lay in the road. Although something caused him to fall in the road, he was alive, and what killed him was the impact of the defendant's Ford Fiesta. The prosecution's case is that Anne Edwards did not swerve to avoid hitting Brian Croxon and did not brake to come to a halt. She hit him and then carried on driving, whilst arguing with her boyfriend. Got a £500 fine and 8 points on her licence, and she's still driving on the roads. Now, you having a fucking laugh? This woman should be in style prison, guys, for death by careless driving. CCTV footage examined by police showed Edwards was travelling below the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit at 24 to 28 miles an hour and was travelling 100 metres behind Miss Winstanley's Citroen. So enough for him to see the obstacle in the road that was Mr. Croxon, God bless him. The prosecutor added the stopping time is somewhere in the region of 11 seconds, and Miss Croxon would have been visible to the defendant for about 10 seconds for a distance of about 100 metres. After the Citroen Picasso went past Mr. Croxon, Miss Edwards had an uninterrupted view of Mr. Croxon. She still hit him, and she still made off, even driving past him as he lay dying. Disgusting. She did not immediately stop. She drove onto the next junction in the road, turned around and came back to the scene of the collision. But by the time she got back, a number of people were surrounding Brian Croxon. She did not stop. She drove past the scene slowly and then drove on. If Anne Edwards had acted immediately to what she saw in the road, she would have brought her car to a halt in something like 4.5 seconds, and that would have carried a distance of about 30 metres. Edwards was arrested later, but she gave a note. Listen to fucking angers me this. Right, listen to this. Right, Edwards. Right, so she didn't hand herself into police or anything, guys. Right, the police had to track her down through CCTV footage of her hitting the Mr. Croxon. God bless him, may rest in peace. Edwards was arrested later. Right, so she was on the phone arguing with a boyfriend on a hands-free kit, which was legal. Should have stopped in time, didn't, hit him, made off from the scene, turned round, drove back, doubled back, drove past slowly, saw people sending to Mr. Croxon who lay dying in the road, made off from the scene. Police had to track her down. She then gave a no-comment interview to the police, but gave it. Oh, so she gave a sentence. When you get arrested, like I say, you can remain silent, you can do interview, or you can go no comment. She declined, she went no comment to every question, but she gave a statement saying she saw a dark object in the road, but was unable to move around it. So she dropped a prepared statement, that's what that's called. There's a picture of her here. She looks like a right scumbag. She told the trial she was speaking to her boyfriend as she wanted company. Well, she wasn't, because she was arguing with him, and denied claims that she was distracted. She said, "We'd been arguing because we hadn't seen each other much lately. We were just deciding whether to see each other." Well, Mr. Croxon won't be able to do that with his family, will he? "We were planning to meet, so I set off to his house in Salford. We were just talking about his day and football." She denied arguing with her boyfriend whilst at the wheel, and also said she did not know her front passenger headlight was not working. When asked whether she realised Mr. Croxon was lying in the road, she said, "It didn't look like a person. I thought it was rubbish." Well, when you doubled back and you turned back and you drove past the guy, you would have known it was a man. People don't get out of the car to surround bags of rubbish in the road. You knew what you did. You drove off. And then you left the scene. You hit him, you came back, you saw the state of his injuries, you drove off. He was on the phone arguing to your boyfriend, you little slag. Disgusting, guys. Absolutely vile, vile, vile. And she didn't go to prison, and she hasn't been banned from driving, and the £500 fine goes to the courts. Oh, I thought it was rubbish. Fucking rubbish. What was going through my head was that I needed to avoid it, but it didn't feel safe to swerve. The car on the other side of the road was obstructing me from doing a full swerve. Excuses, excuses. At the next junction, I turned around as I needed to know. I suspected that it was a person. Right, well, you just contradicted yourself, right? This is the thing, guys. I've been in police interviews numerous times, right? Just let me just clarify something. She said here, she said, "I saw something black in the road. I thought it was rubbish." Right? In the same interview, guys, this was in a prepared statement, and then she declined to comment, but then she must have commented, because she said, "Hold on. What was going through my head was I needed to avoid it, but it didn't feel safe to swerve the car." That was just her excuse, right? At the next junction, I turned around as I needed to know. I suspected it was a person. Well, you contradicted yourself in the same police interview because you thought it was rubbish 2 seconds ago, you lying bitch. It winds me up, guys, like this. "I was so scared. I saw people and cars all together and I was petrified." Well, you should pay attention to the road rather than trying to get your leg over, you dirty bitch. I didn't want to get out of my car. I didn't know what to say. I stopped and put my hazards on. But then when I looked over, I just thought I couldn't get out of the car. I've never been in trouble before. I was scared about a million things, not just one thing. What would happen to me? What would happen to my family? What about your concern for Mr. Croxon? Where was your concern for him? Where was your compassion for a man that you just hit, that you said you thought was rubbish, and then in the same police interview, you said that you suspected it was a person? So you're lying. You're a shit liar. You was bothered about your own bacon. Here, look at this, guys. I was scared about a million things, not just one thing. I thought, what was it? What would happen to me? What would happen to my family? What about Mr. Croxon and Mr. Croxon's family? And you're trying to mouth, "I'm sorry," in the dark. Right? Do you know what I mean? You should have been going to prison, sweetheart, you little slag. It's disgusting, guys. I'm sorry. I get really animated about these sorts of stories, guys. Old man, right? Do you know what I mean? He'd been a member of this Royton Brass Blank Club for 20 years, right? And he fell in the road. Like I said, he might have been on the influence of alcohol, but the cobbles may have been slippery, or they might have had frost on them because it was a cold winter's night. Do you know what I mean? As the verdict was returned by the jury after 3 hours deliberation, Edward turned round and said sorry to Mr. Croxon's family, who were sat in the public gallery, but they ignored her. The family left court without comment. Sentencing Judge Bernadette Baxter told Edwards, "I understand this has been an extremely stressful time for you, and you were genuinely remorseful for not having stopped to report the incident. I hope you understand just how dangerous your behaviour was." If that would have been a man that was judging, I think he would have sent her down. I genuinely do believe so. But he can't send her down because, to be honest, it was the jury that said, like, after deliberation. So whether it was a male judge or a female judge, she wasn't going to prison. But females feel sorry for females, don't they? So she's like, "I understand this has been an extremely stressful time for her." This is from the judge to this girl, right? What about Mr. Croxon's family? She drove, arguing on the phone to her boyfriend, right? Had a defective headlight, right? thought it was rubbish, but then contradicted herself in an interview and said I suspected it was a person. Drove back past, stopped, saw the commotion and saw people trying to tend to Mr. Croxon, and then saw fit, didn't ring the police, didn't hand herself in, made off from the scene. Police had to track her down. She then dropped a prepared statement and then she went no comment. But then she must have spoke to contradict her own statement. Shocking case, guys. Like I say, this is the what's she called? This mess. What's she called? Anne Edwards. Right, here's her and here's Mr. Croxon. He looks like a lovely gentleman. There's the pictures, guys. I put them at the start. There's Mr. Croxon and there's Anne Edwards. Like I say, tragic, guys. Really, really tragic. And the fact that the jury, if I was on the jury, like I say, I stick up for people and stuff, and as a former criminal, which means I can't be a jury member, I would have found her guilty, guys, 1,000,000%. Would have found her guilty. Would have found her guilty, and would have tried to sway other people as well on the jury to pass down her guilty. She deserved to go to prison for her crimes. Disgusting. She's living her life. Mr. Croxon, God bless him, died of his injuries. Had she been paying attention to the road, he would still be alive. Sad and tragic, guys. God bless him. God bless Mr. Croxon. May he rest in peace. My thoughts and prayers with his family. Anne Edwards, you should be ashamed of yourself. I hope that it haunts your nightmares and haunts your dreams. And I hope you have nervous breakdown and everything, because it's vile what you did. You should be in prison, sweetheart. You're lucky that jury felt compassion for you, because I don't, and neither do a lot of other people. Let me know what you think about the story, guys. If it was like, do you feel sorry for her? Do you know what I mean? Do you feel sorry for Mr. Croxon? Do you think that her being on the phone played a significant factor in the fact? Because like he said, even the guy said she should have made the stop in 4.5 seconds. Saw him in 11, and just hits him, man. And yet she wasn't distracted. Rubbish. Let me know what you think, guys. It's not about what I think, it's about what you think. Very interested. Please comment on this video. I'm very interested to know. Like, comment, subscribe. Cody out.